So welcome everybody, welcome colleagues, friends, and fellow viewers of the Ask Lloyd series. Today I'm honored to have two very special guests here. I have Michelle Prophet and Jamie Kent Hamelburg, and I'd like to give a little bit of an introduction before we start talking about each of these two great lawyers. And the first one, well, I'll start with you, Jamie. Jamie is the managing partner of Press, Dozier and Hamelburg. She has been practicing law for over 20 years. She is a focuser who practices primarily on representing businesses and individuals having to do with starting or ending or other issues regarding their businesses. She has been active in the women's business community here in Montgomery County, as she has been an immediate past, I don't know, immediate past president, but recently a past president of the organization known as Women Business Owners of Montgomery County. And she is also active on various other boards and business issues. So welcome, Jamie. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today, Lloyd.
Okay, great. And also Michelle Prophet. She is an estate planning attorney. She serves the Maryland District of Columbia areas. She is a Harvard Law School grad and has worked for financial service industries for over 20 years. She is a dedicated advocate for all of her clients, and she personally handles each of her clients' matters from start to finish, handling all of her clients' estate and tax planning needs, at least when it comes to trust and estates. So Michelle, welcome. Thank you for showing up as well.
Thanks for inviting me, Lloyd. I look forward to just giving this information out. It's so important.
Yes, exactly. And what I'd like to do, I guess, as far as starting the theme today is family, finance, and future. So we are going to get started with that. Jamie, let me ask you this. How can a business be divided during a divorce?
That's a great question, Lloyd. For background, when you're married, your personal life is really intertwined with your spouse's life. You share a home, you probably have combined banking and investment accounts. You can share the ownership of cars. If you have children, your interests as parents and the custody of the children are all intertwined. And that's really the type of law that you work in, Lloyd. You deal with splitting assets and sharing the custody of children, and that's what happens during the divorce. Things become even more complicated when spouses are business partners in addition to being life partners. Similar to any other assets that they might own, a business is an asset too. And whether someone owns a laundromat or something like commercial real estate or a clothing store, a business can be very valuable. So then to get to your question, how can a business be divided during a divorce? One common strategy is for one of the partners to buy out the other and continue to run the company. This works best when there's an unequal interest in the business, so where you would have one partner who is really involved in the business and the other partner is less so, where one partner is more involved in the day-to-day operations and the other partner is taking a bit more of a back seat. Where I would become involved in that process would be to draft up an agreement between the divorcing spouses where one spouse essentially buys out the other.
Right. I remember I had a case recently where the husband and wife, they were an older couple and they had a business. The wife was the rainmaker and the husband was the brains behind it. So if you have partners or married partners who are divorcing and they're so intertwined, what do you do then?
Well, you know, that actually just happened, I think, with Bill and Melinda Gates, where both of them are really involved in their foundation. And they have chosen to continue to work together. And certainly the people that you just described, that is an option as well. So it's expected for Bill and Melinda Gates that they're going to continue to work together in their foundation. And in your example, those spouses could choose to do that too. Another possibility would be for there to be a split where each spouse could take part of the business. Two dentists, they share practice and each could easily divide their own clients. Of course, dealing with a physical office space would have to be handled separately because that couldn't be split down the middle. But there are certain circumstances where a buyout wouldn't be appropriate, but instead there could be a splitting of the
There's
business.
something called like a buy-sell agreement. How, if any way, do those help out?
So a buy-sell agreement is something that could be entered into in advance of there being a divorce. So for example, when a husband and wife are deciding that they're going to enter into a business together, there could actually be an agreement between them about what would happen in the case of a divorce. Sometimes people don't like to think of this. It's almost like a prenup, Lloyd. And I'm sure that you have clients where they don't even want to think about what might happen in a divorce. And sometimes this can happen too with business owners, but it's a wonderful way for the partners to think about what might happen during a divorce. And they could set up a system where the business could be appraised. And then one side could either buy out the other side, or they could decide to split in some way.
So what should spouses be thinking about if they're running a business together so they could avoid a messy situation should their marriage end up on the rocks?
Well, certainly a buy-sell agreement is a really great idea. And I think of it in terms of that every business owner should really be focused on documenting things. And I say to my clients all the time, document, document, document. Everything should be in writing. I've seen some situations where one spouse is like the real owner and manager of the business, but the other spouse will have the title and hold the ownership interest to take advantage of government certifications like minority or veteran or woman-owned. And that's a recipe for disaster if the couple divorces, because there could be arguments about who really was in charge and who really was making the decisions. So it's important to think about these things in advance, to have a buy-sell agreement. You could also have an operating agreement that clearly lays out the ownership interests of the various partners. And just like if you have a prenuptial agreement, you can have provisions in the operating agreement or the buy-sell agreement about what will happen in the event of divorce.
Thank you very much. And let me just turn over to Michelle. I don't want to leave you out because you're definitely a part of this.
Oh, I was learning so much. I was enjoying the conversation. I was like, well, if I get a business and divorce now, it's all taken care of.
Exactly. It was very informative. Thank you, Jamie. So, Michelle, let me just ask you, since you're the estate and trust attorney of the group, what happens with say, a well drawn out, a more elaborate estate when a married couple who owns a business divorces?
Well, you know, a business is something that you're going to look to, like Jamie was talking about, the buy sells and other intricate papers or documents for the business. The important thing to remember for people or couples who divorce, who own a business or not, is that if you want to do this preemptively, you should really think about the prenuptial agreement and iron out what's going to happen in divorce in that, or even do it in the postnuptial if you don't get around to it. Just for people who don't know, when divorce happens, if you already have an estate plan, which you drew up as a married couple, when divorce happens, it doesn't negate the entire estate plan. It does negate the provisions that relate to the divorced spouse. So, for instance, if you have an estate plan that left something to Aunt Mary and something to Uncle Joe and then something to your spouse, the estate plan will continue existence for Aunt Mary and Uncle Joe, but it just will conclude, or it will just not honor the provisions regarding your divorced spouse. Because the courts recognize that divorce changes things.
Sure. And so people who get divorced and they have their assets, what do you recommend for these people to do to protect their individual estates post-divorce?
Okay, post divorce, you want to do some things immediately. After you get divorced, remember a will is a secondary document. It's not going to supersede a contract that you've done elsewhere. So if you've designated your soon to be ex spouse or currently ex spouse as a beneficiary in your insurance, that's going to outlive your divorce. It's not like a will that expires certain provisions automatically upon divorce. The insurances. So you want to change all of those beneficiary designations to back to yourself or to someone else if there's someone else who's entered your life. That's the first thing you want to do to protect your estate. Then you want to think about possibly drafting an entirely new plan so that you can solidify your legacy um, based on what's happening in your life going forward.
Right, because that may be one of the other things that people in business want to do. In these types
Exactly.
of business we're talking about, pass it down to the next generation. Is there anything, particularly since we're talking about passing a business down to the next generation, that you can speak on post-divorce as well?
You know, a lot of things, there are two main things. They're, prenup or postnup. That might have protected you. Then post divorce, if you want to protect your children, you might want to do an estate plan which includes a trust. If you
Okay.
have like a second marriage, you might want the second wife to get a piece and then the rest to come to that first set of children, right? There are also certain trusts you can do, a charitable lead trust or charitable remainder trust, where you might want to give a portion of the income to a trust and then the remainder to your children, or vice versa. So when you're talking about post divorce, how do I protect my children? You really want to come in, um, and for a business in particular, in and talk with someone to do some particular trust planning because you need a specific document which has terms. And then you also want to look at those operating agreements that Jamie's talked about and see, do I need to change those, or are they sufficient? Do they allow the business to be passed down to my heirs, or do I need to do extra tinkering on that as well?
Well, that is about all the time that we have. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jamie. I gotta just say, I have learned so much right now. I do this for a living, but it's just amazing to speak to somebody who has those little intricate specialties in their little niche areas. And I'm hopeful, and I'm sure, as a matter of fact, that whoever's watching this come away with the same type of reaction, that they've learned a lot, because it really was very informative. So thank you both very much, and thank you, my audience, for watching till the end the Ask Lloyd series.